controversial points and many disputes about what is good in society, and that leads to a lot of can lead to a lot of conflict. So it's possible to say that because we're living in this contract, so we have sort of the social contract that the people wouldn't agree to the idea that it's my responsibility to help out more than it is not to harm. But I think there are many different explanations for that as well, and I don't buy Harman's argument completely on that. Okay, so and then one final point about Harman's view is you would have to sort of hold this theory right here, and you have to say that take for instance Mother Teresa or some humanitarian like that. On Harman's view, if you follow that, you have to say that what makes Mother Teresa's, say, her helping starving children or helping women, tens of thousands of women throughout her life, what makes that right and what makes that valuable is not the fact that she was helping out other human beings, but rather the fact that she was being truthful to the agreement that was made in her society. So that's what makes her action morally right, not the fact that she helped out tens of thousands of people. And that's a position that I find hard to swallow. Okay, so in the case study, that was another one of the articles on the New York Times blog, The Stone, which is really great, so you guys should check that out if you're interested in these topics. But essentially that's where Nussbaum was talking about the case of the burqa being sort of outlawed in Spain. And it gets to the sort of the larger point of, and we're seeing this throughout Western society and societies all over the world, how do we deal with different cultural practices when we're living in sort of the pluralistic societies, and how do we determine which practices should be adhered to and which ones should be disallowed. There was sort of like a 50-50 split, I'd say, between people who said that in a pluralistic society, democratic society, the majority essentially has to rule. And there were other people that says that it's not the dominant group that should decide which cultural practices are allowed and which ones are not. I guess my question for you guys, the ones who don't think that the dominant group should decide, what sort of principles would you use to decide which cultural practices are accepted? And that can lead to, if you say, well, all cultural practices should be accepted, then you're going to run into a problem. I think Alex Pettingill and a few others pointed this out, that you can't, it's really difficult to imagine living in a pluralistic society with different cultures and thinking that those cultures are not going to clash at a certain point, because they certainly will, and that's what Scalia was pointing out as well. So it's impossible to make all the accommodations without running into conflicts, and even some of those practices can be really seem to us really violations of human rights. For example, the excision or the infanticide that the Eskimo cultures practice. So I'm not sure that we want to say that we can accommodate all of those cultural practices. Someone else mentioned, maybe it was Kyle, how what we need to do is we need to really create a list of universal human rights or global human rights. And then, you have those sort of as your baseline for the culture that you're living in. But in addition to that, you have the cultural practices, as long as they don't interfere with those sort of universal human rights. And, I think that idea has some merit, but, obviously it's a problem. I mean, that's the problem that Rawls was dealing with when he was, trying to work through his veil of ignorance, and the original position he was trying to list what those universal rights would look like. And the problem is, how do we decide what those universal human rights look like, because it's a very controversial issue. Several people said they enjoyed the article. I'm really glad you guys are enjoying the case studies. We'll do one more at the end of next week, and I'll probably take that from the Stone as well. Okay, so this coming week, you guys are going to be doing something a little bit different. This is where in the beginning of the course, I asked you to fill out the survey, and you talked about there are essentially three groups that people chose: human rights, environmental ethics, and just war theory. And what I've done is I have placed the readings for each of those in the Scholar site under that appropriate folder under resources and human rights or environmental ethics, etc. So today, after you watch this, just go to the Scholar site and find that reading and read that. And then for the discussions, I'm not going to pose a prompt for each topic. What I want you guys to do is sort of to take more of the lead in that, and start up just discussing something that you find philosophically interesting, something that you think relates to another topic that we've discussed in the course, and connections that you see and things like that, and get started, and then I'll jump in as well and contribute what I see. And as I said, at the end of the week, there will be another case study. And yeah, I'm going to try to get the, sorry about that, I haven't got the paper topics up yet. I'm going to try to get those up, or I will get those up by 5 p.m. today at the latest, so you guys can start thinking about the paper topic. I've had one person email me talking about a topic they were interested in, so if you want to do your own topic, please send me an email relatively soon so we can discuss that. Maybe I can give you some resources that you can look at and things like that. Final note, I noticed that participation was lagging a little bit at the end of this last week. I understand we're getting sort of towards the end of the course, but I have the course designed where almost half of your grade comes from participation. So if you read the material and you try to provide a thoughtful response, you're guaranteed to get an A on half the class. So it would be a shame to let that go to waste. So just make sure you guys are getting your discussions in on time. I usually, if you haven't noticed the pattern by now, I usually look at them early Sunday morning, afternoon, things like that. So I mean, you don't have to get it in on the exact day, although that's ideal if you do that, because it really helps the discussion. But try not to get it in any later than early Sunday afternoon. So anyway, I'll be around. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention. I think what I'm going to do for the next 2 weeks, so if anybody does want to sort of meet up, I think from Tuesday 3 to 5, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be sitting outside the GLC. There's a GLC Plaza's there. There's a fountain there, and I'm just going to sit out there and read and do things like that. And if you guys want to come by and discuss the course or discuss paper topics or anything like that, or just discuss whatever, I'll be out there. So feel free to drop by. I'm planning on doing that this week, tomorrow from 3 to 5, and then the following Tuesday from 3 to 5. And I can help you guys with if you have questions about your papers and things like that. So hope you enjoy this week, and have a great week.